Okay, let's jump right into Matthew chapter 25 for this deep dive.
Good plan. This chapter, it really bundles together some key teachings, doesn't it?
It really does. You've got themes like being prepared, what you do with what you're given, responsibility.
And crucially, how we treat other people,
Mhm.
all sort of pointing towards a future accountability.
Exactly. So we're going to unpack these messages straight from the text, see what insights are there for you.
And it's interesting how they flow together. It feels like they build a cumulative picture, you know, about readiness.
Readiness, yeah. But not just thinking about it, right? It seems tied to actual actions.
Precisely. How we engage with the world, the resources we have. It starts with that first parable, the 10 virgins.
Right, the 10 young women, bridesmaids, basically. They've all got lamps. They're waiting for the bridegroom. Seems simple enough on the surface.
But the text makes a big distinction straight away. 5 are wise, 5 foolish.
And the difference, it boils down to oil, doesn't it?
Yeah, the wise ones, they thought ahead. They brought extra oil in jars. The foolish ones just had their lamps, maybe with just enough oil for a short wait.
They had the look, but maybe not the substance for the long haul.
And it turns out, it was a long haul. The text says the bridegroom was delayed, a long time coming.
So long, well, they all got tired. Fell asleep, actually. The wise ones, too.
The wait affects everyone. But then, midnight, there's this sudden shout.
Here's the bridegroom. Come out. Imagine that jolt.
Total scramble. Everyone trying to get their lamps trimmed and burning bright.
But the foolish ones, uh-oh, their lamps are sputtering out.
They didn't plan for this delay, so they turn to the wise ones. Give us some oil.
And the wise ones say, well, they say no, basically.
Yeah, quite directly. There might not be enough for all of us. Go buy your own.
That preparedness, that extra oil, it wasn't shareable at the last second.
It couldn't be transferred, yeah. And this is where the story takes a turn, according to the source, while they're off trying to buy oil. The bridegroom arrives. And the ones who are ready, the wise ones with their oil, they go straight into the wedding banquet with him.
And the door is shut.
That detail, the shut door, it feels so final.
Then the foolish ones finally get back. They're outside knocking, sir, open up.
But the answer they get from the bridegroom inside is just chilling. I tell you the truth, I don't know you.
Wow. Their lack of preparation, it meant they weren't recognized, weren't included.
So the explicit takeaway the text gives us right after this story,
It says, therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour.
it hammers home that need for constant readiness, doesn't it?
Right.
Not just intending to be ready, but actually being ready, having that oil.
Whatever that oil represents for you, yeah. Sustained readiness.
And that flows really naturally into the next parable, the talents.
Right. Different scenario, but still this theme of a master returning and what happens in the meantime. Responsibility.
So this man's going away. He entrusts his property talents, which was a huge sum of money back then, to his servants.
A lot of resources, yeah. And he doesn't give everyone the same amount.
You know, one gets 5, one gets 2, one gets 1. And the text is specific, each according to his ability. So it's tailored.
Interesting point. Okay, so what do? The first two, the 5 talent and 2 talent guys.
They get right to it. The text says they put his money to work. The 5 talent guy makes 5 more. The 2 talent guy makes 2 more. Doubled their money.
They were active, engaged.
But the third servant, the one with just 1 talent,
He takes a different approach.
a very different one. He goes off, digs a hole, and buries it. Hides the master's money.
He didn't lose it, didn't waste it on himself.
No, he preserved it. But he did absolutely nothing with it. 0 growth. 0 engagement.
Then, after a long time again, that theme of waiting the master comes back. Time to settle accounts.
The first 2 come forward, show their original amounts plus the games.
And the master is pleased, right?
Very pleased. Says the same thing to both. Well done, good and faithful servant. Praises their faithfulness with a few things. Promises them charge over many things. Invites them into his happiness.
So active stewardship leads to reward, more responsibility, joy.
Seems to be the message.
Mm-hmm.
But then comes the third servant. The 1 talent guy.
And his excuse is interesting. It's based on fear.
Yeah, he says, I knew you were a hard man. I was afraid. So he just gives back the original talent. Here's what belongs to you.
And the master's reaction, not understanding at all.
No, it's incredibly harsh. You wicked, lazy servant.
Lazy, okay, but why wicked? He didn't steal it.
The master's reasoning is key. He says, even if you're afraid of risk, the least you could have done was put it with the bankers, earn some interest.
So the expectation wasn't necessarily huge profits, but some kind of responsible action, any action.
Exactly. The failure wasn't risk. It was total inaction driven by fear. doing nothing productive with what was entrusted.
And the consequence for that inaction, according to the text.
Severe. The 1 talent is taken from him, given to the one who already has 10. And the servant himself cast outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. A really stark outcome.
And the principle the master states, it sounds almost paradoxical.
For everyone who has will be given more. Whoever does not have even what he has will be taken from him.
So it seems like using what you have, abilities, resources, opportunities, leads to more, while neglecting them leads to losing even what you started with. Is that the idea?
That seems to be the implication from the story, yes.
Yeah.
Active engagement versus passive hoarding out of fear.
Okay, so we've got readiness, the oil, and active use of what you're given, the talents. What's next? The text moves immediately to another major teaching.
The separation of the sheep and goats. This one describes a scene of future judgment, a grand-scale sorting.
Yeah, the language is epic. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, all the nations gathered before him, universal scope.
And he separates them, like a shepherd does with sheep and goats. Sheep on the right, goats on the left.
A clear division. So what's the basis for the separation? Let's start with the sheep on the right. They're called blessed.
The king tells them they inherit the kingdom because,
Yeah.
well, because they took care of him. When he was hungry, they fed him. Thirsty, gave him drink. A stranger welcomed him. Needed clothes, they clothed him. Sick or in prison, they visited.
It's all very practical acts of kindness and compassion.
Very concrete. But what's really striking is the sheep's reaction.
They seem completely surprised, don't they? Lord, when did we see you?
Exactly. Like they weren't doing these things consciously for him. They were just helping people in need.
And then the king drops that bombshell line.
The core statement. I tell you the truth, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me.
Wow. So serving the vulnerable, the least of these, is seen as directly serving the king himself.
That's the explicit connection made in the text. Now, what about the goats on the left? They're called cursed.
And their judgment, it's the flip side, isn't it? It's about what they didn't do.
Precisely. It wasn't necessarily about committing some terrible act, but about omission. They did not feed him, give him drink, invite him in, clothe him, visit him when sick or in prison.
The lack of active compassion.
Yes, and they're just as confused as the sheep were.
Lord, when did we see you and not help you?
They didn't recognize him in the needy people they ignored or passed by.
And the king's reply mirrors the earlier one, but in the negative. I tell you the truth, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me.
So neglect towards the vulnerable is framed as neglect towards the king.
That's the direct statement, and the final outcome presented.
Stark difference. The goats to eternal punishment, the sheep to eternal life.
And the clear dividing line in this teaching seems to be active, tangible service and compassion towards others, especially those identified as the least of these.
It really puts the focus on practical action, on how we treat people, doesn't it? It provides a very concrete, action-based standard for that future accounting it talks about. It connects our relationship with the king to our relationship with, well, with everybody, especially the marginalized.
So looking back at all three virgins, talents, sheep, and goats in Matthew 25, you see this thread weaving through. Watchfulness, readiness.
Active stewardship,
Yeah.
using what you have.
And then this compassionate service to others, particularly the vulnerable. They seem interconnected.
Definitely feels that way. So what is that connection, based purely on this text, between being ready, using your abilities, and serving others?
Yeah, and does inaction in one area, like not getting the oil or burying the talent, does that affect the other areas? Your readiness, maybe even your ability or willingness to serve the least of these?
That's a powerful question to consider, and maybe the most pointed one this chapter leaves you with, based strictly on these verses.
What does the least of these actually look like for you today? Given the examples in the text, the hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the sick, the prisoner, how does that translate?
Yeah, what does that identification mean in practice? Definitely something to reflect on.